before we get started, a couple of things, and to make sure everybody knows that we are recording this. Our goal is to post this on BBB's consumer resource page for Marylanders to be able to listen to going forward. And also to remind you that in the top right hand is a little bubble box. And inside, if you click on that box, you are able to post questions that you might have for us as we're going along. So please feel free to use that feature. If you were not logged on, we will unmute everybody at the end and give you a chance to jump in and ask a question. So I would like to introduce Samantha Paskey. Samantha is our moderator today. Samantha, take it away.
Alrighty, yes. So I have the pleasure of moderating this discussion today. Our presenters are going to be talking about how this crisis right now is inspiring scammers and some tips on how to protect yourself and spot these scams that are going around. And Angie did just mention the ground rules for this, so please do feel free to enter questions as the webinar progresses. I'll be sure to be monitoring those questions, and if they're relevant to the current discussion, we'll go ahead and ask them, and if not, we'll ask them at the end and make sure all your concerns and questions are addressed. So I just would like to introduce our presenters today, first and foremost. First of all is John Singer. He was a senior attorney at the United States Federal Trade Commission for 25 years. He prosecuted numerous consumer fraud cases, including enforcement actions that were addressed at stopping online fraud. Since retiring, John has been an adjunct professor at both the George Washington University and University of Baltimore Schools of Law. And our other presenter today, as you see, is Angie Barnett. She is our president and CEO of Better Business Bureau of Greater Maryland, and she has extensive experience serving in executive roles for nonprofit organizations. So we shall move forward. So Angie, could you tell us today a little bit about how this crisis is inspiring scammers and why these coronavirus scams are more risky than even other scams that we've been seeing?
Yeah, I'm going to say, I'm going to use the same words I shared with you the other day as you and John and I were talking about preparing this presentation. And it's very simple. BBB in 2019 conducted research in partnership with the Stanford Center for Longevity, among other agencies. And the research was with regards to susceptibility, our likelihood to fall for a scam. Because when we talk about scams, and any of us read or describe as we will today, you're going to say, I would never fall for that. I don't understand why people fall for this, but we really can't. That's a stereotype. Why are we more unlikely? And why is this crisis now? People who are most susceptible to scams have these criteria, and one might be financial volatility, financial vulnerability, meaning right now, I need money. That's why sometimes we believe in playing the slot machine, or we do the lottery a little bit, because we may need money. We are vulnerable to that, and we believe there's hope, even though logic tells you you're not going to be 1 out of 2 billion people. So financial vulnerability. Number 2, online, increasing use of online services, whether you're shopping, you're browsing, looking for something, even online entertainment. And by that, I mean internet-based, when we're looking at social media platforms. There's as much advertisement today on my Facebook page as there are posts from my friends. So I do know that when we're using social media, when we're using online sources, it increases the likelihood we will be exposed to a scam, because that's one of the avenues scammers take. Lastly, we talk about social isolation. The stereotype is, and what you may periodically hear, as the individual most likely to fall for a scam are senior citizens or a senior citizen. And BBB has been really rebuking that myth and saying no, because of online presence, people using social media, because people are sometimes volatile or vulnerable financially, we're finding that seniors aren't necessarily the most vulnerable to scams anymore. And but when seniors are vulnerable, it is because they are socially isolated. They're at home. They're more likely to answer the phone. Seniors are more likely to answer the door. And seniors are more likely to want to engage with a scammer, to actually have conversations. It's easy to build trust through that conversation. So people who are socially isolated tend to be more vulnerable, susceptible to scams. So when I put all of those together, the COVID-19 virus provides for us the perfect storm for falling to a scam or being exposed to a scam. So I will add a fourth ingredient: anxiety, emotion, fear. Some of the tension we are all feeling as Maryland residents. You put those things together, we have the perfect storm for what inspires a scammer to really come out and come after us. People are simply vulnerable now.
And Angie,
Perfect.
may I interject something as well?
Oh, of course, John.
Okay. I was also going to add, when you have the reaction, which many of us do, that I'm too smart to fall for this,
Yeah.
that one of the things one thing that I have empirically that I've seen is there are a lot of smart people who, in fact, do fall for different scams.
Yes.
Additionally, and one thing that surprised me, I was in private practice doing sophisticated commercial litigation before I joined the FTC. And I thought that many of my defendants in consumer fraud cases would be lazy people looking to make a quick buck. One of the things that surprised me the most, and it was consistent over 25 years, is a lot of the people, there are certainly lazy people who do want to make a quick buck, but a lot of these scams are conducted by very smart, very hardworking people who have no moral scruples. But they know how to play off the fears. They know how to play off of the different vulnerability. And this, again, is the perfect Petri dish for them to use their abilities and their talents. And they do have abilities and talents, just not good ones, to take advantage of even sophisticated, but perhaps desperate and vulnerable people.
Absolutely. Moving on. Next slide, please. Thank you. John, if you could share with us a little bit about what scammers are looking for, right? So they're trying to get our information, and what is it that they exactly want as part of these scams?
Scammers are generally looking for a few different things, and you can see here, they basically fall into two generalized categories. One is sort of the quick hit. They want to get your credit card number, your debit card number, or some type of checking account number. When they do that, at the very least, they can take a one-time payment. More likely, quite honestly, they're probably going to try to drain that account, use your credit card to do something like that. The next level, which you'll see, which is still quite common, but a little less so, is they're going to try to get what's known in the trade as personally identifiable information. These will include your social security number, login credentials for different accounts, your date of birth, your address, and your driver's license number. When people do this, they may not only try to drain your account or use your credit card, they may try to steal your ID. I'll also add on that, though it's a little something we'll address a little later on, but I was looking at the New York Times today, and in the past week, there's been a rash of people who are getting personal identifiable information in a variety of ways that we'll talk about, and they're going online, they're going to the IRS, the legitimate IRS website, and then redirecting individual stimulus payments to their own checking accounts. So these are people who will stop at nothing and try to get information from you. As I said, the easy example is someone's going to offer you an online mask, something really valuable like toilet paper that you can't get, and an offer to send that to you. And they'll take your credit card or bank account for the payment. And there are much more sophisticated scams as well, or more complicated ones, which Angie and I will talk about as we progress today.
Absolutely. Next slide, please, Clay. So John, if you could sort of explain to us a little bit about how these scammers attract victims.
Okay. Basically, scammers fall into sort of three buckets, if you will. And I'll talk about each one, but the buckets are people who pose as helpers, people who pose as potential employers, and people who pose as government officials. Many of us, and I'm 61, so I grew up in this, so I think I hit a lot of people roughly that age and younger, watch Mr. Rogers growing up, or reruns of it if you're a bit younger. And coincidentally, I lived around the corner from Mr. Rogers and actually knew him growing up. So I'm a big Mr. Rogers fan. But in any event, Mr. Rogers did teach people to seek the helpers in times of crisis or emergency. And in this instance, there are many helpers out there, but there are a lot of scammers who pose as helpers. For example, they're going to offer to get you supplies, provide you with critical information, or something like get you some type of treatment or testing or financial relief. They may so that's one type. For example, someone could say, and this is probably something I would suspect, I bet a fair amount of money will happen in the next 2 weeks, that they are somehow connected, and this is the government official as well as the helper, with the Maryland Department of Health. They are willing to provide you at no or low cost one of the 500,000 testing kits that the governor very wisely got from South Korea. In fact, you're not going to get a testing kit. They will take a fee. They might get your personal information. They'll probably say they need it for epidemiological or statistical purposes, and you're going to fall victim to a trap of someone who's trying to be a helper and posing as a government official. Similar things with the World Health Organization, the CDC, and the National Institutes of Health as well. Second bucket of people are scammers posing to be potential employers. Over the past 6 weeks, 22 million, which I think is about 18% of the US workforce, 22 million people have become sadly unemployed. That makes them prime victims for someone who wants to come in and say, I can give you a job, it pays well, or it pays anything at this point. Well, is a very relative term in these days. And that you can do it from home without exposing yourself. If something is an old saw, but if something's too good to be true, it probably is. And if someone unsolicited sends you an email, a text, you see something on social media about these types of jobs that are work at home, not that many hours, you can take care of your kids, do whatever you need to do at home and also get paid, it's probably a scam. Government officials, I've mentioned as well, just in brief, it touched on. But again, if you get a call, particularly from the government, or an email of someone saying they're with the government, ignore it. The government, both federal and state and local, will contact you if they need to. However, it will always be in writing by traditional postal mail. They will not, the IRS and others don't email you, they don't call you, they don't ask you for information. So be very wary of anything that you don't get. Again, just using the IRS as example because it's so prominent with the stimulus payments that says that. And normally I know it struck fear in my heart if I see get a letter that has the return address of the IRS, and there might be reasons for that, but at least I know it's legitimate. If I got an email from the IRS or a call, I know it's not.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next slide, Angie, like you were mentioning earlier, BBB has done research on vulnerability and scams. So can you tell us a little bit about, the particular demographics that are most at risk here?
Yeah, we were, as I mentioned earlier, we were already moving into a new norm, moving away from that assumption that senior citizens are the most vulnerable. And that is because there is such a tremendous opportunity and people are utilizing online for 1,000 reasons. So actually people most at risk of scams had become the millennial and even the younger generation, the Gen X's after that. So the coronavirus actually is capitalizing across, everybody is fair game is what I think is a reasonable thing to say. But right now, BBB's research indicated that 35 to 54-year-olds were the most vulnerable age group right now, because again, they're not only trying to buy products, toilet paper, they're not only trying to buy products online, but they're also searching online for jobs. They're searching online for entertainment and for news information. Women are more vulnerable to coronavirus scams than men. And we also want to add to this our newly remote workers, people who are working at home. They may be using their employers, some of their employers' security measures to ensure that they're protecting the data. But those individuals scammers are developing special tactics just to try to target the remote worker and make them think that, for example, we very familiar, but this is happening in Maryland. They may think that the CEO really does want to send $100,000 to this vendor, and this vendor needs it right now. And it may be plausible that it might make sense. And so people are taking action because they're working from home and they're not around the corner to verify that information. And as I mentioned several times, the online shopper. So 41% of the people reporting scams through Scam Tracker to BBB also reported losing money. And of those individuals reporting to us that they lost money, the average amount was $80. And we've already discussed, but we know that the face masks, the PPE is the most common scam we're seeing with the coronavirus, along with the stimulus grants, and the employment scams.
Absolutely. We're going to shift gears just a little bit now. Oh, no, we're not. I'm sorry. But well, basically, John, if you could talk to us a little bit about how scammers work to try to access your information specifically.
Right, and you can see what's on the slide. Let me just amplify a couple of points.
Yeah,
First, something which we don't have as much on there is telephone calls to you, either by real human beings, or at least something like a human being if they're a scammer,
absolutely.
as well as robocalls. The reason I raise that is, since the beginning of February, the Federal Trade Commission reports there's a 49% increase in robocall-based complaints. So the scammers are out there, and we might be at home, but they're working hard. Beyond one thing I will say, and Angie will talk about phone-based scams a little later in this presentation, but if you do get what you suspect is a scam, for example, no caller ID or a call from somewhere that you don't know anybody or unlikely to know anybody, if you pick up for reasons not worth going into technically, there'll usually be a silence, because the scammers are waiting to see if somebody actually starts talking. If you pick up the phone and there is silence, hang up. Don't say anything. Don't say hello. Don't say yes. Don't say, is there somebody there? The scammers may well record your voice and splice it into something that you never possibly expected, saying you agreed to whatever the scam was. Similarly, don't touch any buttons other than to hang up, because scammers can often use that you touched a button to agree to something that they said they were going to do. So just hang up. Also, in terms of social media, emails, text, anything that's electronic, you may get something, say, from the World Health Organization or somebody that purports to be the World Health Organization by text or email, seen on social media, that says, here is urgent or critical information you need to know, and all you need to do is click on a link, download software, or open an attachment. What will happen when that happens? One of three things, usually. You'll get some type of malware, or you'll get some type of what's called malware downloaded onto your device, whatever that might be. It might trace all the keystrokes that you make, so that the scammer can figure out when you're logging into your bank, what your ID, what that information is. It may also give them full access to your hard drive to get all sorts of personal information about you. And another possibility, which is relatively new, is they may lock your device and send you an email or call you in some way other than that device, send you an email saying basically, we're holding you hostage and you're a device hostage, and once you pay us, we'll let it go. A number of large entities, including, if you remember from last year, Baltimore City had its entire IT system taken hostage. So it's not just individuals, it's large, sophisticated organizations that have people on IT full time who are falling victim to this. So never give out your information. And if somebody who you've never heard of offers you to give you critical or urgent information, all you have to do is click or download. Don't. Just delete the message and move on with your life.
Absolutely. So we're going to sort of shift gears a little bit and just talk about the common scam types that we're seeing. John, if you could first just talk more generally about the common scam types, and then Angie, you're going to go through some specific scams that we've seen through BBB.
Right. We've actually talked, I'm going to talk sort of on the left-hand column. If you're an Angie, you'll get the right-hand column of the menu. And I'm not going to go into details because we've already hit all of these scams with the example of phishing. And phishing is just somebody posing to be like your bank and trying to get information from you, like, we need to verify your account status, send us your password and your social security number. But basically, the scams that we're seeing now tend to be just new variations of scams that have been around for a long time, but they're being adapted to the situation and the exigencies and desperation that coronavirus presents. One example we talked about a couple of days ago when we were preparing for this is a comparison to Hurricane Katrina, because I have family who lives in New Orleans or used to live in New Orleans. And there it was a great, many of the things we're dealing with here, but it was relatively localized compared to the whole country and the whole world. And additionally, people in New Orleans they may have had cell phone service if they were lucky. They didn't have landlines. They certainly didn't have internet. Here, the whole nation's at home. The whole nation has electricity. The whole nation basically has internet service. So you're there and accessible to these scammers. It's 250 million people in the US or so alone who can be subject to these scams. So it's a very large, even if think of it this way, even if scammers could only fool 1% of the population, that's still 2.5 million people. So it's a lot of people.
Yeah, John, I think that's such an important point. People just don't think about I gave them $40. What difference does it make? I love that point that you just made. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say I just want to touch for a second on online purchase scams and price gouging from a personal experience. There are a lot of things that are in shortage. Toilet paper is one. Something else are webcams. If you want to go into Zoom or other types of software to do business or talk with family and friends. I happen to have purchased a webcam just before all this broke because I knew I'd be doing distance teaching for University of Baltimore and GW. And I got a camera, it was on sale even, from $25 to $22 at Best Buy. My wife does business out of our house, and I tried to get her a second camera after the world had changed fundamentally. The cheapest one that I could find, and I looked this up again a couple of days ago, for the exact same $22 camera I bought, was now $149 if I wanted to get it within a week. That was the cheapest. I don't know if I ever would have even gotten it, but at least they said they had it. If I wanted to get it from some known legitimate sources like Best Buy, Amazon, or Dell, it was the normal price, but I was told, hopefully we'll have it available and in stock to deliver to you in July. So people are trying to get things, and things they not just want, but need. And others know at best you will get the product and overpay for it. At worst, they're just trying to play off your desperation to get information from you. One thing I also just want to add is, and this was up 1,000 from yesterday, the FTC has had over 24,000 complaints related to COVID-19 since the beginning of the year, and 13,000 of those are related to fraud. I would suspect, based on my experience when I was at the FTC, that this in fact only captures a very small amount of the actual fraud that's out there, because many people just are embarrassed to report it. They don't know to report it. So if this is 10 or 20% of the actual amount of fraud that's out there, I would say that would be on the high side. It's true. Historically, it's often closer to about 5% of the actual fraud. So this is something, if you're defrauded, it won't provide much, it'll be called comfort, but you're not alone. There are a lot of people falling for this, or at least realizing they're trying to be defrauded and reporting to the authorities, which can be very helpful.
Absolutely. And I just would add, BBB research has shown as well that fraud is terribly underreported. So just to concur with you. Angie, if you could go through now some of the scams that we've been seeing here at BBB.
Yeah. I'm going to give some concrete examples, but I want to begin with one is a chuckle, and I'm actually giving a chuckle at my friend's expense. I have a friend who knows where I work and what I do for a living. John, I know you probably go through this as well. She sent me yesterday, and I wished I'd gotten these to Clay to put up for you guys to see. She ordered from Amazon. So Amazon is a respectable, trustworthy, we believe, third-party provider for goods and services. So first of all, she ordered toilet paper from them. I don't remember, so I'm not going to quote because she told me, but some astronomical cost. The rolls of toilet paper are this big, but the hole in the middle is this big. So there's only this much. It comes from China, and I have to tell you, on the package of the roll of toilet paper, it says the feeling of falling in love. So toilet paper that says that. So we see, oh, she paid $90 for 10 rolls.
Oh.
So yeah. So yesterday, to add, to begin with, one of the things, John, exactly what you were talking about, we BBB staff went over a complaint that we received. Just want to tell you about it initially. It was a call that was received. Somebody used an authoritarian sound, such as Maryland Healthcare. When they said, when the caller identified themselves from Maryland Healthcare, they said due to the coronavirus, their local physician was making changes, and the caller was asking for personal identifying information, again, posing as a healthcare provider. The address that they provided, we were able to trace back to a real medical provider. And Samantha, you're the one I think called, or Jerica, our staff called and spoke with them. And that medical provider had received calls from people because people were doing that double check. And the reason they called that physician's office is because their phone identified that physician. That's called spoofing. So we can look at our phone and it looks as if the IRS is calling us or a physician is calling us. So we think it's an authentic call. But just to remind everybody that, John's talking about if you answer, hang up, don't punch in the numbers. And we say don't even trust what the caller ID is now revealing to you, because scammers are able to appear as if they're, again, making calls from an authoritarian source. So I've always said, I've taken John's one up, and I've always said, when we talk about scams, don't answer the phone, period. It's really hard to do now because we're all working from home, so we don't recognize so many of the phone numbers. It is a different work environment, but you really want to be cautious of that. So that's something that we just looked into yesterday and we'll be talking about further. So click next slide. Thank you. So this is a fake website that Samantha and her team have been looked into, conducted an investigation. So BBB, we locally here in Maryland, we get our information in a couple of ways. One is through complaints. And complaints is when you have an experience with the business, you weren't pleased with the end result, you didn't get a resolution to your transaction, there was a problem, you submit to BBB and ask a third party, totally neutral, to help resolve that complaint. Well, That is one way of getting information. In addition, we also get information from consumers about scams through a tool we call Scam Tracker. Very simple. Go up to your web browser, BBB Scam Tracker, put that in. It'll take you right to our website where you can it is data collected. It's crowdsourcing, if you will, for scams, and it has little pin drops. You can expand those pin drops to see the types of scams going on in your community, what people are reporting. So when we share examples with you today, these are examples in which people have either filed complaints or we've gone to our scam tracker tool. So this particular company is called Family Prepping Association. This company sent out unsolicited emails advertising, of course, what everybody's looking for, PPE, their face masks. People would report to BBB. They were getting multiple emails throughout the day, and there wasn't a lot of information, but it was early in the COVID. Everybody was looking for resources. People started ordering from this website and basically never got the product that was delivered. So we have posted up on our BBB profile to give an alert to everybody. So you could have simply gone to your web browser, and we want you to put in the words Family Prepping Association, scam, complaints, BBB, and that will help you be directed to other websites that have aggregated data to tell you whether or not this particular business is real or not real, if this particular business has complaints. So BBB is giving this business an F rating. So you simply want to ask yourself, well, how do I know it's a fake website? What do I do? So we always want you to do one thing. We want you to look at the spelling on the website. We want you to look at, does it look like English is their first language or their language of choice? Do they have misspellings? Because professional services, they're never going to have misspellings. Clay, could you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. They're not going to have misspellings. We also want you to look for, I always say one of the biggest security red flags is when you go to the checkout, to the cart, when you're about to pay, it directs you there. We want to make sure that that website is secure. So you look in the web browser, you look for HTTPS. The S means that data is encrypted. You also look for a padlock. Frequently, there's a padlock that closes. It's open, and when you get into the secure mode, it closes. Those are really good indicators that this website is secure. If they are aggregating personal information from you, your email, your address, private information, I always say, please go to their privacy policy, check out their terms and conditions, see if you can find out how they're using your data. Are they going to sell it to other marketing firms? But if they're not concerned about how they are disclosing and protecting your data, that's a good warning sign as well. So we at BBB, we always look at the age of a website's domain. And so anytime, and our friend John just referenced Hurricane Katrina. Anytime there's a catastrophe, something has happened, we simply begin to check out the age of websites. So we go to who is, Clay, could you go to the next slide? Thank you.
Hang on, sorry, it's my computer is not responding. There it goes.
Oh, yeah. Is it, you're freezing on us there.
Clay, you didn't download some malware, did you?
It was the unlocked padlock.
Yeah. But I want to tell you, this is one of the most important tools you can use is whois.domaintools.com. Start in your web browser, put in whois, and it'll finish out .domaintools.com. Put in the website when you are able to just put in information, and it will tell you who owns the website. It will disclose address, etc. but most importantly, that date. And Samantha, that date is always to us a warning flag, right? We're
It's a
always saying,
huge
yeah, because if that website just came up yesterday, selling face masks, and it's collecting our information, that is a website we are really going to begin to follow and check out. It's not necessarily a red flag. I'm just saying it can be a warning flag for all of us. We also go and make sure on a website that it has contact information. So if a website is not disclosing how to get in touch with them, a phone number, an email address, guys, we say please walk away from that website, because that means they're already hiding something, they're less transparent. But we also want to tell you BBB's experience. Just because they have an info at doesn't mean they're going to return your email. So you might even want to test the waters a little bit. Send an email if it's an unknown website. Send them an email and see if they answer, or try that phone call. Lastly, just to mention, if something lures you to a fake website, or if you get a phishing email, one of the things that we look at in emails is if they're not personalized, if they say dear sir or madam, especially if they are, appear not to, again, have a comfort level with English, look for misspellings. And when you get an email, take your mouse, don't click on any links, but hover over, and it will show you where that email's sort of a domain, if you will. And if the email is supposed to be coming from Walmart, but when I hover over it, it appears as if the email is coming from another source in a link, or if that email address has nothing to do with Walmart, or Walmart's misspelled. Those are all our things. So that's a lot of information. So I'm just saying right now, and John, Samantha, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but if people say, how do I know it's a fake website? How do I know if this email is real? How do I know if the social media is posted? I'm saying, first of all, we need to slow down in our online purchasing and our online trust, because right now scammers are out there. So slowing down is the first piece of advice I always give to people, is just don't trust everything you do, and learn to use some of these very simple tools. We're going to send just a follow-up to you with these tool checks to help guide you. But we want you to take the time to make sure you're not giving your money away, and most importantly, you're not causing losing your identity or anything. So that's our fake websites. The next one I want to briefly touch on is our employment scams. This is a business that came to BBB's attention through our scam tracker tool. It's called Expert Genius. And all right, guys, this one, John, this is a tough one, isn't it? Because this is, in essence, a reshipping scam. And what happens in reshipping scams, and I really always want, as I know John does as well, to drive home the seriousness of this, is if you fall victim for a reshipping scam, you often yourself are breaking the law. In essence, you are engaged in an illegal action. Expert Genius simply put out, advertised a job. People accepted the job offer, and they were sent. Their job was to have a bank account, have a setup to receive packages, repackage those goods received, pay the shipping to be sent overseas. When that and you will be reimbursed plus paid as a job for doing that task. And they can make up all kinds of plausible reasons why you would do this, but we are seeing an increase in this scam because people think the money piece good, it makes sense to them for whatever reason. They might be told you're receiving face masks here and you're going to send to China. Maybe that could be a story, but people are reshipping goods, and again, that reshipping is oftentimes counterfeit or stolen goods. John, do you have anything to add to that? Because I'm sure with the FTC, you saw this more frequently than BBB probably does.
Not so much. I don't know as much to say on the reshipping, but again, this is a time where, work at home has always been attractive to a number of
Yeah.
people for reasons having nothing to do with the economy, just their personal circumstances. Now, because people understandably are concerned about leaving their house, and even if they weren't concerned, they might not have a job to go to, people are particularly ripe to fall for anything that might seem like they could make money by working at home.
Right.
And again,
Right.
it's a little bit, I used to joke when I started working at the FTC, people would promise a 300 or 400% return on your investment in business opportunities. When the economy took a downturn in 2008, they were offering like a 10 or 20% return because suddenly a good return seemed to be a much smaller number. Here, forget about making $1,000 a week working at home. People might be happy making $100 a week working at home.
Yeah.
So their tolerance both for fraud and what seems like a good deal is much different than it would have been. People are trying to survive, not enhance their income or make a little more money by working at home
Yeah.
on the side.
Yeah. So when the COVID virus started, Samantha, I think, I hope you agree, BBB our first wave of complaints and scams started off with the face masks, PPE.
Yeah.
Then before the stimulus money was ever released, we had stimulus scams because people were calling and saying, you're going to be eligible for stimulus. Let me get your bank account number and help you prepare. And then third was employment scams, and still is our number. It is a high ranking scam that we're dealing with. So Clay, if you'll jump 2 slides to how to spot an employment scam, we'll wrap up this piece so we can finish up. Very easy employment scams. BBB advises if the job, John's already touched on these, but if the job comes easy, no interviews required, that's clearly a red flag. If you have to pay and purchase things to get the job, Samantha, that is a huge red flag. And that's what you and your team are seeing all the time, is where people have to pay these upfront fees to get a job. So
Yes.
I would say if the position is shipping agent, secret shopper, those can really be red flags. And I love John's remark. We'll just end it there. If the offer's too good to be true, it probably is. So employment scams are really hitting.
Yep.
Next slide.
So
Government
lastly,
grant scams.
yeah, and Samantha, we're again back to seeing these. It's really easy. This one we talked about yesterday. We have Maryland victims falling for this, and it's like, what? We cannot believe this. But basically, there are ads out there, and so we can get government grants as individuals, and we can get more grants by paying more money. So you're going to get $50,000 if you pay a $500 fee. And you'll see in this advertisement or this solicitation, the more I pay, I can pay $7,000 and get a $700,000 grant. And guys, you're going to pay for this by Western Union, a gift card, you're going to send money. And yes, Marylanders are falling for this. And again, I'm going to go where I started, Samantha, and I'm going to always say, when we're financially volatile, when we're socially isolated, when we're looking for our resources online, it makes that perfect storm that when you see this, the way this is presented, you go, I would never fall for that. But seeing when you put all those pieces together, you can clearly see how we would. So, John, this is one we were just reviewing as a BBB staff yesterday.
And Clay, if you could go to the next slide, please. I'm going to just touch on a subset, which we've actually talked about a little bit already, of government grants, in particular the stimulus check and the SBA loans that are coming out that you've probably heard about, the PPP, which I guess is Paycheck Protection Program. These are obviously legitimate programs that are being funded by the federal government. A few weeks ago when they were announced or being proposed, we were seeing scams of people saying, we can get your money more quickly, or we'll give you the money now in return for a small fee and you can pay us back or something like that when you actually get the check. They would ask for payment information, and again, personally identifiable information as well. And these were not legitimate because, as I've said it before and I'll say it again, the government only contacts you by mail in writing. They don't email you, they don't text you, and they don't have private agents who can somehow work things through for you to have this happen more quickly. Having said that, you also can see that you also probably, by looking at the paper or listening on the radio or TV, have seen that there have been what we would charitably call glitches in both the stimulus payments and the SBA loans. And I'm not going to assess, how that came about. That's beyond my knowledge. But the comment which I'll make on those are, because people are desperate, they are not only falling for these scams, but they're being concerned. I thought I was going to get a check. I haven't. If they hear from somebody saying, I've got money for you, or I can get the money for you, or the SBA has some money left, I can get you pre-approved or arrange it for you, people are falling for that. And as I mentioned at the outset and earlier on, there are people who are not only trying to get a fee from you to arrange for your stimulus package, stimulus check, they're actually taking your PII, taking your payment, and then logging on, saying that they're you, and redirecting the check or the direct deposit to go to them rather than you. So you not only, you're losing both the front end and the back end, and that's becoming, unfortunately, all too common lately. An example as well, just I can tell you where one of these was coming from that I saw recently. Somebody was sending out emails to individuals saying they can help get stimulus payments for you or make them expedite them or something, or qualify you. And the email was US COVID-19 Treasury at gmail.com. Again, even if for the sake of argument, the government may have contacted you, it's going to be at treasury.gov. It's not going to be the government's not using Gmail, at least so far at this point. And the Ray line, which was all in capitals, the subject line was COVID-19 pandemic stimulus package. So it got people's interest. It may have, if you look at it quickly, as Angie said, slow down. It may have looked very attractive. And if people need cash, and many of us do, they'll respond. And unfortunately, not only won't they get what they want, they'll end up in worse shape than when they started.
Absolutely. Teleworking scams. John or Angie, which one of you wanted to speak on this?
I think that Angie was going to.
Oh, okay. Well,
I can either way.
we've oh, thank you. I'm sorry. John, he said, she said there, but ever so briefly, we have talked about this a little bit. But teleworking scams have become more prevalent because more people indeed are remote workers now. So the one thing we'll do is we will receive a notice that tells us Microsoft, an ad pops up. It says Microsoft, is down, or your license is expired, but they give you a cause to reach out to what you think is tech support from Microsoft, from some entity that you trust. You think they are reaching out to you. You call them. They will speak to you on the phone, and before you know it, the bug that you think is the malware, the bug that you think they are going to help you fix, goodness gracious, what they've done is they've talked you into allowing them to go into your computer to fix it for you. They now have control of your computer, which means they also have control of your information. So the tech support scam comes and goes. It's not new, but because more people are working from home, that might be one of the things you see come up. I always tell people, the second something like this happens related to ransomware, related to a tech support scam, what I encourage people to do, turn your computer off and call an IT person. There are so many businesses that will come to your home and help you out with this. So That's critically important. We also want to say, you know, when you are working from home, we want to make sure that you do know who to contact for IT. You have that person. You're using personally and professionally, you're using two-factor authentication. I know people say, that's such a hassle when I log into my bank account. I've got to turn around and verify that it's me. Those extra measures from your cell phone to your personal computer to using work, that two-factor authentication makes a huge security difference. And then we always say, of course, please don't click or download attachments, click on links, particularly if you don't know that the information came from a reliable source.
All right, and if John, you could share with us some of the scams that we anticipate seeing that we may not have seen in great numbers yet.
Okay, I think there are going to be a number of them. In particular, one which I will mention is things dealing with unapproved treatments or fake cures. And I'm going to go back 1 second here in my notes because I think I misnumbered something, but I'm back here. Okay. Scams that are, there are going to be scams of people saying we can prevent COVID-19 or we can cure it. These have to be scams by definition because at this point, there are no preventative measures beyond social distancing, washing your hands, masks, things like that. There's no medicine that prevents it. There's no vaccine. Similarly, there is no treatment or cure for COVID-19. Obviously, the medical profession is working very hard at that. And I think there's actually a lot in the press that there's no cure. You may ask then, why do you think this is going to be a problem? And I don't mean to say this as a political statement, but rather I'm looking at this as someone who has worked against fraud for a lot of my career. You probably have heard of the drug hydroxychloroquine. I was practicing that. It's a drug that is only available by prescription. And actually, a couple of days ago, the CDC announced that they are recommending, there was initially a little bit of anecdotal evidence that it may have some beneficial effect. They announced not only doesn't have any beneficial effect, in fact, a well-known complication of it from it's an older drug is it can cause heart arrhythmia, and the CDC decided that more people were dying from taking the drug than from not taking it. Again, that's medical fact. It's not a political statement. However, as you may recall, there were a number of tweets and well as statements at press conferences by President Trump to take hydroxychloroquine. You know, what can it hurt? Dr. Oz was also jumping on that bandwagon. And again, I'm not casting aspersions. I'm not making a political judgment or medical judgment. I'm just saying many people saw that and undoubtedly are going to say, if the president and Dr. Oz says it might help me, I want to try it because I'm desperate. As I said, there's no evidence that hydroxychloroquine helps you, but let's just I'm going to take 1 second here and let's think about what the 4 possible logical outcomes would be if you got an email, if you got a text, if you get a call saying, I've got hydroxychloroquine, I will sell it to you for X dollars. From someone you don't know and is not a medical, not anyone you know of to be a healthcare professional who's authorized to prescribe medicine, and certainly not on an unsolicited basis. 1 of 4 things are going to happen, basically, and just think about this. And this is typical of any scam. 1, the scammer is going to take a one-time payment from you. So you're out some sum of money, but at least it's hopefully not too much. Secondly, the scammer might take your payment information and keep sending you what they say is hydroxychloroquine every month for additional money, or they might not even bother to send you anything and just try to drain your bank account or use your credit card information. Again, that's, you know, the best you have for it, we said, is maybe a one-time payment. Maybe here they're just going to drain your credit cards or bank account. The third option would be sort of a variation on those two, is that the person will take your money, they might drain your accounts, and they actually will send you something back in the mail. It's probably a worthless pill. Hopefully it's not dangerous. And the fourth possibility is they may actually send you hydroxychloroquine, which, as I said, from what I read from legitimate news sources is something which is not available without a prescription and is potentially very, very dangerous and doesn't have efficacy. And that leads me to, again, come back to, if someone's offering you something and you don't know anything about them, don't send the money. And even more in this instance, and this goes to all sorts of things like even weight loss, which is obviously a less controversial issue. Well, interesting issue, but less controversial. Do you really want to put something into your body that comes to you from someone who you don't know and is just an unsolicited invitation for you to buy something through mail, through the internet, through mail or social media? One other comment I'll also make very quickly is, when I first started doing this, a lot of fraud was done by mail because the internet didn't exist and email didn't exist.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why the internet and email have become such vehicles for fraud is it actually is pretty expensive to commit fraud by the postal service. You've got to print stuff up, you've got to buy envelopes, you have to buy mailing lists, and you have to pay for postage. It isn't cheap. It costs virtually nothing to solicit untold hundreds of thousands of people by the internet, by email, on social media, and that's why these have become the vehicles for fraud, and why people will offer you hydroxychloroquine or other things, whatever it might be, through these different these electronic media, or by phone even, and not by legitimate mail. And just a comment there for you, and a little bit of a sermon, and I hope it's of some use to you.
Thanks, John. So probably move on to tips at this point, or are there some more scams to anticipate here?
Well,
I think we've talked about a lot of them.
On the previous slide though, I want to chime in with John and say the other thing that I think I bet you agree, John, we're going to start seeing a lot more of are charity scams.
Yes.
Scams in which people are using COVID-19 as a reason for you to give, to help feed people, for the care of our frontline defenders of our health, all kinds of reasons, all of which really tug at your heartstrings. But it takes nothing for a scammer to set up a fake website saying they are a foundation, they are a charitable organization, and they're going to donate money. That goes to a reminder about crowdfunding as well, using crowdfunding tools, applications like GoFundMe. And when we give money to GoFundMe, remember, it's not tax deductible, and when we give to charities that are local, they have boots on the ground to deliver that promise locally to your community. If you are going to give, make sure you use a credit card, and we encourage you to always make sure you're giving to charities, again, that you're familiar with, and you can verify their legitimacy. So I do think, John, we're going to start seeing a real uptick in charity scams as well.
Right, and a couple of comments I'll just add to what Angie had to say. If someone solicits you on the phone and says you have to give now, don't give. Legitimate charities are not going to pressure you to give money right away. They might, tell you that the money would be helpful now, but they're not going to tell you need to give up before I hang up the phone. So don't give in if they ask for an instant commitment. Do research, as Angie was saying before. Put the charity name in and see if they're complaints or scams. Many of these scam charities are using names that are both intentionally and confusingly similar to legitimate charities, so that you think, I kind of heard that before. It sounds legit. It's a tough time. I'm fortunate to be able to give some money. Check out and make sure it's legitimate charity. The BBB has a website, give.org, where you can check out charities. You can also get in touch with the Maryland Department of State, to see if they're registered. It's a little more work, but if you have the time and want to do that. And you can also, if someone's soliciting you, hang up, close the email and call the charity directly and see if they know someone soliciting on their behalf. If it's not a legitimate charity, they probably aren't going to have a contact information you can find independently on the internet or through a phone book. And if it is a legitimate charity, they're going to know who's out, if people are out soliciting for them. Finally, if you do choose to make a donation, and I'm not going to go into the technical reasons for it, make it by credit card. You have some liability protection for fraud on a credit card. You do not on a debit card or your checking account. So again, check it out, but do what you can to protect yourself, even if you decide to give.
For sure. I think we can move on to the consumer tips now. Angie, if you want to start to share those.
Yeah, just a quick wrap up. I think John and I, between the two of us, we've probably beaten this one to a dead horse, but let's just remind everybody, investigate further. Please don't trust the unsolicited calls and emails. That's the thing about scammers. They always approach you unsolicited most often. Don't click on random links or open attachments. The IRS will not call you. And be on the lookout for spelling errors, grammar mistakes, incorrect terminology. Make donations using a credit card. Buy from trustworthy sources always. And we always are going to say for BBB, check with us. We do have Michael who answers the phone every day, all day long. We also have a live chat feature, but we are there to serve you, to help you decide, is this really a scam or not? What should you do to protect yourself? BBB.org/scam tracker will also enable you to look up scams that are occurring, and also to post a scam if you want. So again, we've got a lot of tip information there, and we'll get that out to you.
Angie, and if I can just interject for a second, BBB.org scam tracker is one place you can record it. Another place, I'll put in a plug for my old agency, if you go to Federal Trade Commission, so FTC.gov, G-O-V, you'll see in the upper right-hand corner of the homepage, file a consumer complaint. If you file a complaint with the FTC directly, or with the BBB, or the State Attorney General, wherever you might be, that will get to the FTC. And you might say, well, why is that important? The reason I'll just give you as background is the FTC is the nation's leading consumer protection agency. And importantly with that, we get, well, I should say they, because I'm not at the FTC anymore, but the FTC gets things from the BBB, from state attorney generals, from local sheriffs, from all sorts of governmental and non-governmental organizations about consumer complaints. And as a result, has the world's largest consumer complaint database. The FTC has people who analyze that database constantly, looking for fraud, and why the BBB does a wonderful job. We have subpoena power, can go to court and shut people down and take their money back, in which consumers. So reporting these things, whether it's to the FTC directly or through the BBB, is really a valuable service. It may or may not help you get money back, but it very definitely can help prevent other consumers from being ripped off.
Right, we're all in this together.
Yes.
All right, well, we're at the question and answer section. I didn't see any questions to the entire group. Clay, did you receive any questions that were sent directly to you possibly?
I did not, no. No private chat box questions, and I have been periodically checking email to see if we got anything to the info@ email address.
Okay, got it.
Nothing
there.
Do you want to
if
unmute?
anyone has any, yeah, we can.
And just see if there's any questions. I know we're over our time. People do need to go. I understand that. But if anybody had a burning question, Clay, if you could unmute them, maybe John would be able to take a question or two before we let everybody go.
Sure. I am pushing the button now. So everybody should have the ability to unmute themselves and ask a question verbally at this time.
Yeah, question about debit cards. How do you protect yourself using a debit card?
John, did you hear that?
I heard debit card. I didn't hear what the
Yeah,
question was.
he said his question's very simple and it's a great one. How do you protect yourself using a debit card?
You really can't, is the answer. There are federal laws that basically say, and I'm doing this in a very 30,000 foot level, that basically say that once you report fraud on your credit cards, your liability is limited to $500. A lot of, not all, but many credit card issuers basically limit you to $500 even if you don't report it immediately, even though you're supposed to. Debit cards is essentially giving your checking account information away, and it gives somebody direct access to your checking account because it's tied to checking and not to credit. And if you use a debit card, you basically are wholly at risk for the entire value of your checking account. Plus, if you have an overdraft line for that, there is no protection, whereas there is some protection for a credit card. I also want to add a credit card, even if you have limited liability of $500, if you use your credit card for repeated payments and things like that, monthly payments, it will still be a hassle, but at least it's a hassle as opposed to an expense and a hassle, or a fairly limited expense.
Yeah, we wish we had better
Good
news.
question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always advise people think twice before using your debit card at a gas pump or just some very simple things where skimmers are, maybe prevalent. You really have to be careful on how much you use your debit card and the convenience of it, and making sure now we've all transitioned to a debit card with a chip in it.
I'll just add, it's sort of interesting to see generationally. My father-in-law still pays off very frequently with cash, though we finally convinced him to get points for his expenses. I've always used a credit card because that's what was available when I was getting out of college. And my kids use debit cards and use Venmo and PayPal and all sorts of other things because that's what their generation uses. So some of this is definitely what you're used to using.
Yeah.
And while a debit card can be very good at making sure you don't overspend your assets, it doesn't provide you the same protection as a credit card.
Yeah, and I would just add real briefly, unless there's another question. I was going to add about the Cash App and Venmo. One thing that we see a lot is that there's very little recourse for getting your money back sometimes with those. So you may have paid an individual directly through Venmo or Cash App or something like that. And so I just wanted to add that as well.
Yeah. The other thing that is a benefit of credit cards in the United States and Canada only, it's issued by a bank here, is if you order something and it never comes or what you get isn't what you ordered or expected to get, you can dispute the charge. You can't do that with a credit card, with a debit card or with a payment by a check. So again, credit cards, they're not perfect by any means, but they do provide you with a level of protection you can't get elsewhere.
Correct. Do we have any other questions? I don't think we do. Well, I guess at this point we can wrap up. So you can contact us, BBB of Greater Maryland. Our phone number 410-347-3990. You will reach our wonderful coworker Michael, and he really is truly helpful. You can email us or reach us on social media. We respond to direct messages through those channels as well. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, John. Thanks, Angie.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me, and thank you for everyone's attention.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. All right.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Have a great one. Bye. Be safe.
Stay healthy, everybody.
Yeah.
Stay healthy, indeed.